Hey guys, my name's Tyler, and I had a game on the Pokemon Trading Card Game Online, or PTCGO, recently, where I mulligans 11 times in a row before getting a playable hand. And so I said to myself, well, that's ridiculous. There's no way that this is, gonna happen to me in a real world situation with real cards. So I made myself a deck that mirrors the deck I was playing on the online game, which had 6 basics in it, and I used 54 energy for the other 54 cards just so it was easier to pick out when I got a basic versus when I got a non-playable hand. And I began shuffling. I shuffled out about 150 hands. I really only recorded 100 of them because, I wanted to test and make sure that I wasn't going to record 100 hands and look like an idiot at the end of it. But what I found was that the results were pretty interesting. So because there's 6 basics in the 60 card deck, the chances of me getting 1 basic in an opening hand, which is a legal playable opening hand, is 10%. And we're only a minute into the video, so you can tell that we're going to get far more than 10% of our draws are going to be playable. So the whole point really here was just to show that while true randomness is important and is good in the online game, it is not what really happens in real life. I don't know why the percentages are higher than they are. I'm not advocating that we have to remove true randomness from the game. I think that's not a good idea, because as soon as you start to give non-true randomness, the game falls apart. It's no longer a game, and all card games have randomness to them. That's how we make them games and make them fun. So you'll see through this video here that the amount of basics I get is about 50%. Now, if you want to skip ahead, I will put a time code up on the screen. You can click that, or you can skip to the time code it says, and you'll get the results. But like I said, it was about 50% of the time I got a playable hand out of these 100 hands that I dealt. And I'm gonna compare these to 100 hands dealt in the PTCGO to see how that compares. But you can see right from the get-go that the statistics here is different, right? In the online game, it seems like you mulligan way too often, and because it's true random, you're not really getting a representative shuffle feel. And in real life, you can tell by the statistics that you get a good draw the majority of the time. You can tell that in some of these instances I've stopped the recording and started again. I did this about every 20 hands just to make the video file smaller and to give me time to go to the bathroom and get some water and stuff like that. I never changed the makeup of the deck. I kept it 6 basics, 54 energy. Never did I rearrange the order of the cards, aside from just pure shuffling to make things random. And what you're seeing is just pure raw statistics. Now, I will say that while 100 hands dealt seems like a lot, especially when you're doing it, it's really not a huge sample size in the grand scheme of things. And I'm sure that when you analyze every single hand dealt on the PTCGO, it probably starts to even out and mirror the statistics of the pure numbers of what you would see in a deck that has 6 basics. It just appears from a player standpoint that the mulligan system is very rigged. I don't want to say rigged, because that's not really the appropriate term. It just doesn't seem like it works that well. I'm not, like I said, I'm not advocating for a non-random system. I think that doesn't make sense either. At the end of the video, I will go over how I think the mulligan rule should be handled. But yeah, for now, we're about halfway through. And so I'm just, at this point, I'm getting kind of tired because it was a lot of shuffling. But yeah, like I said, there's a time code on the screen. If you want to skip to that, I suggest you do, because no one wants to watch 10 minutes of me shuffling cards. I will join you at the end. So we're getting close to the end here, and as you can see, the total amount of playable hands was 49, which, like I said, is very, very close to 50%. Obviously, it's 49% because there was 100 hands, but it is statistically much higher than it should have been, the 10% that it was supposed to be. So yeah, and then here's just me showing that, the deck has not been tampered with. There's still 6 basics, the rest are still energy. So how I feel the mulligan should be handled is what's called the no shuffle mulligan. So again, I started with a deck of 54 energy and 6 basics. Now, this mulligan rule probably has many names. I know it as the no shuffle mulligan, but basically what you do is if you mulligan your first draw, instead of putting those cards back into your deck and shuffling your deck, you either set those cards aside or you put them on the bottom of your deck, you do not shuffle your deck, and you continue to draw cards until you get a playable hand. And you can see here the number of mulligans before a playable hand was 2, so I only mulliganed twice in a row until I got something that was playable. I cut out any instances of me getting a playable hand on the first go because that's boring and pointless. And so throughout this process, you can see that the average amount of playable hands, average amount of mulligans before a playable hand is about 1.5. Rounded down, I would say it's closer to 1. We did have one high instance of 3 mulligans before a playable hand, but statistically speaking, your chances of mulliganing over and over and over again, like I did online with 11 mulligans in a row, it's significantly reduced because you're statistically pulling cards out of your deck until you can get a playable hand. And so this method of mulliganing, I find, is a lot fairer to players, because you're still not encouraging players to make their decks with 1 or 2 basics and the rest of supporters or whatever, because you're still going to have to mulligan through your deck, and you can still kind of punish players by letting your opponent draw if you mulligan. It just gives players who like to run fewer basics a little bit of breathing room, and you don't have to feel as pressured to play a lot of basic Pokemon, because in late game, having tons of basics in your deck is not going to help you. This is a much more fair system, and it feels like the randomness doesn't hit you as hard with a non-shuffle mulligan. So you can still keep the completely random aspect. You can still keep the punishing for low basic kind of scheme that they've got going on now, but this is a lot more fair, and it doesn't punish you as hard. So yeah, this is how I would do the mulligan system. I'm not an expert in games. I'm just a player that's been playing card games for a very long time, and this is a mulligan system that I like in my card games. It works very well, and it feels a lot more fair than the straight up random system that we have now. So this was our longest. It was 3 mulligans before playable hands. It was kind of an outlier. The rest was in the 1 and 2s, but here's the deck again. Still 6 basics and 54 energy. So yeah, if we've learned anything from today's video, it's that a card game needs to be random, but you can't make it too random, otherwise it can't be competitive. So you need some breathing room in there, and I think a no shuffle mulligan is a great way to do that. So yeah, thanks for watching the video. If you liked it, leave it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, send it to Pokemon, maybe they'll change something. If you didn't like it, that's fine. You don't have to like everything. Anyway, have a good day, guys. Talk to you later.